Hello and welcome everyone to the Environment Primer series of Drishti IAS. My name is Pragya and today we are going to discuss a very important topic that is in news recently. So all of us know, and I have been also discussing, that the biggest climate change conference, that is the COP28, is happening in Dubai, and the countries are more focused on taking actions rather than discussing the problems. So in the previous lecture we have discussed the global cooling pledge. Okay, and now we are discussing another such pledge that has been taken by the countries at COP28 recently, and it talks about tripling of renewable energy targets. So climate change is very real, as I have been discussing in our Environment Primer lecture time and again, and definitely the countries need to follow a solution-centric approach rather than talking about the problems. Okay, so these are the solutions that the countries are coming up with to fight the worst impacts of the climate change. In this discussion, we are firstly going to see the global renewables and energy efficiency pledge that has been taken at the COP28. Okay, COP28. Okay. Then we are also going to discuss what is renewable form of energy. We are also going to see how the countries are planning to come clean by 2050. Then we are also going to analyze the India's stand in this regard, and in the end we are going to see a practice question for your prelims examination and a practice question for your mains examination. So if I talk about the background of our today's topic, the countries are taking seriously the worst impacts of climate change, and they also agree that most of the global world is dependent on the non-renewable energy resources or the fossil fuels such as coal, petroleum for their energy demands. And that is why they have taken this pledge that no, we are tripling our renewable energy target by 2030, and 118 countries at COP28, okay, have signed a unique kind of pledge known as the Global Renewables and Energy Efficiency Pledge to increase the triple the demand of renewable energy by 2030. Basically, they are trying to increase the renewable energy resources by 11,000 gigawatt by 2030. So this is almost tripling the renewable energy targets by 2030. So this brings us to the moot question of our today's discussion, that what is this pledge, what it is talking about. Let us see. So if I talk about this Global Renewables and Energy Efficiency Pledge, it talks about that countries have to double the global average annual rate of energy efficiency improvements from around 2% to over 4% every year until 2030. So this is what the global pledge is talking about. It is talking about, increasing the renewable energy efficiency of the countries, and they need to increase it from 2% to 4% if they want to triple the renewable energy demands by 2030. Okay, and by checking the rise in emissions, governments hope to curtail global average temperature below the 2 degrees Celsius temperature limit since pre-industrial times, if not the ambitious 1.5 degrees Celsius of the 2015 Paris Agreement. So we have discussed this before also, that our average global temperature is rising due to the climate change, and the main perpetrator of this climate change is the industrial era that happened in the 1800s. So what the countries are trying to achieve, they are trying to keep a check in the global rising emissions, okay, global change in the temperature, global rise of the temperature, and they are trying to keep it below 2 degrees Celsius. The ideal target should be keeping it below 1.5 degrees Celsius for the decade as per the 2015 Paris Agreement, as I have explained to you in my Environment Primer lectures also. But by using the renewable energy resources, they are trying to keep the rising temperature in check below 2 degrees Celsius as per the standards of pre-industrial times for this decade. Okay, so this is important for the countries, and they are focusing more on the solution-centric approaches that they can that can help them actually realize this dream. Okay, moving forward. Incidentally, the International Energy Agency or the IEA has found out that between 2022 to 2027, renewables will account for over 90% of global electricity capacity expansion. See, we need electricity, we need energy resources, but the countries are trying to shift their approaches from using the non-renewable energy resources to renewable energy resources. And definitely this is going to increase by 90% in the years between 2022 and 2027. Okay, so they are actually trying to follow a solution centric approach. They are actually trying to follow their previous pledges that they have taken at various COPs, especially at COP 21, which talked about phasing out of coal completely. So this is a positive step in this regard. Okay, and the upward revision is mainly driven by China, as I have explained to you in before also, and in my previous environment primer lectures also, that China currently is the largest greenhouse gas emitter. It accounts for almost 15% of the global greenhouse gas emissions. So definitely China had to play a positive role in this regard. Then there is the European Union, the US and the India. Why are we including India? Because India is talking about phasing down of coal rather than phasing out of coal. So India also is talking about, being dependent on the renewable energy resources. In fact, India has said that 40% of its demands, of its energy demands will come from renewable energy resources by 2030, and definitely India is trying to achieve net zero emissions by 2070. Okay, which are all implementing existing policies and regulatory and market reforms while also introducing new ones more quickly than expected in reaction to the energy crisis. So the countries are coming together to acknowledge the energy crisis that is happening due to the use of non-renewable energy resources, and that is why they are so seriously talking about using the renewable forms of energy. So this brings us to another question of our today's discussion, that what is a renewable form of energy? Okay, so if I talk about what is a renewable form of energy in very simple terms, and you might have studied about it in your lower classes as well. So this renewable form of energy has the capacity to replenish itself more quickly than we consume them. Okay, so energy resources are of two types: non-renewable, renewable. Renewable can be replenished quickly, and non-renewable energy resources take time to replenish them quickly. Okay, so renewable energy comes from natural sources that are regenerated more quickly than they are used up. Okay, and examples of such sources that are continually replenished are the sun and the wind. Most common sources, the sun energy and the wind energy and the tidal energy. Okay, renewable energy resources are frequently included when using the term alternative energy. So alternative energy, we are using this term. Why? Because we are trying to figure out alternate forms of fuels that we can use for fossil fuels such as coal for the non-renewable energy resources. So they are often referred to the alternative energy resources, and renewable energy resources are those resources which have the capacity to regenerate themselves more than the consumption rate. Okay, moving forward, these are the major sources of renewable form of energy. So first is the solar energy, wind energy, biomass, hydropower sector, then tidal waves, hydroelectric sector, then geothermal energy. Okay, so these are the major sources of renewable energy, and the sun and the wind and the tidal powers or the tidal energy are the most common sources of the renewable forms of energy. Moving forward, let us discuss the coming clean pledge by 2050. So let me explain to you how exactly are the countries planning to come clean by 2050. Okay, so solar, wind, hydropower and biofuels are seen as the fuels of the future even in developing countries. Okay, because developing countries are more dependent on the non-renewable energy form of resources than the renewable energy form of resources for their energy demands. Okay, according to the pledge, the tripling of the renewable energy is expected to practically eliminate fossil fuels as energy sources by 2050. So this was being discussed in the previous COPs also. Like in the COP 21 also, they were talking about completely phasing out coal from the energy sector. Okay, so this is an enhancement of that previous pledge or the previous dreams which the countries wanted to achieve. Okay. Moving forward, the IEA has found that the electricity is the brightest spot globally for renewables, with the strong growth of solar photovoltaics and wind energy in recent years, building on the already significant contribution of the hydropower. So, you will ask me, ma'am, what are the challenges in this regard? The main challenge is energy sector or the electricity sector is accounting for only 1/5. If we actually want to, triple our renewable energy resources target, then not only we should use the renewable form of energy in our energy sector, but also in transportation sector. Okay, because transportation sector is also one of the biggest factors in contribution of the emissions of greenhouse gases into the atmosphere. Okay. So last year, India's Ministry of New and Renewable Energy said that the country was the world's third largest producer of renewable energy, with 40% of its installed energy capacity coming from the non-fossil fuel sources. So definitely India is trying to increase its dependency on the renewable form of energy resources rather than the non-renewable form of energy resources. And definitely the countries further need to discuss that how are they going to use the renewable form of energy resources in other sectors as well, as I have explained, like in the transport sector. Okay, for completely achieving their targets, like tripling the renewable energy targets by 2030. Moving forward, let us understand what is the India's stand. How far India agrees with this pledge? Has India actually signed this pledge? Okay, so the pledge was superheaded by the EU and the US and the UAE and supported by Brazil, Nigeria, Australia, Japan, Canada, Chile and Barbados. But if you talk about India and China, they have stayed away as the initiative calls for phasing down of coal and ending the continued investment in unabated new coal-fired power plants. So basically, India has not signed this pledge. Why? Because in the COP21, India said that no, it is not possible for us to completely, phase out coal from our energy sector. Yes, we can try to achieve it, but we will slowly and gradually be able to achieve it. That is why India modified the phrase from phasing out to phasing down. And that is why India and China are saying that yes, we are developing countries. We need to increase the standard of living of our people. We need to give them equal access to electricity and etc. and all other energy resources. And that is why it is not possible for us to completely phase out fossil fuels from our energy sector. And that is why India has not signed this pledge. Okay. But if you talk about India, in September 2023, however, India had already supported, as a part of its G20 presidency, a commitment to work towards tripling global renewable energy capacity by 2030. India has also launched the Global Biofuels Alliance. Global Biofuels Alliance. Okay. In its G20 presidency, and we have covered the Global Biofuels Alliance in our separate lecture of environment primer. Okay, so India has launched this alliance, and India definitely is working to lessen its dependency on the fossil fuels such as coals. Okay, the announcement was one of the strongest declaration to come out of the G20 New Delhi Declaration. So definitely the developing countries, they definitely will not sign this pledge because they do not have the technology, they do not have the knowledge, and they are too much dependent on the non-renewable energy resources as of now. They need to increase the standard of living of their people. But yes, if you ask about India, definitely India is trying to decrease its dependency on the non-renewable energy resources, and slowly and gradually all of the developing countries will come together in the fight against the climate change. So with this, we come to a conclusion of our today's discussion. We have seen that what is this pledge that the countries have taken at the COP28. We have also seen that what is renewable form of energy. Then we have also seen that what exactly is India's stance in this regard. And we have also analyzed that yes, we need to find more solution-centric approaches to climate change, fighting climate change, because if we are not going to take actions, the necessary steps, definitely our future generations are going to face the even worse impacts of the climate change than we are already facing. Okay, now let us discuss a practice question for a prelims examination. So the question is, consider the following statements. Your statement number 1 is, between 2022 and 2027, renewables will account for over 90% of global electricity capacity expansion. Your statement number 2 is, global renewables and energy efficiency pledge is signed by 120 countries. Which of the following statements given above is are correct? Your options are, option A is 1 only, option B is 2 only, option C is both 1 and 2, and option D is none of the above. Kindly drop your answers in the comment box below. Now let us discuss a practice question for your mains examination. So the question is, consider the opportunities and challenges associated with using renewable energy as an energy resource. So firstly, we will explain what is the renewable energy resource. You will write about the major sources and briefly, and then you will discuss, yes, the opportunities are there because of the impact of non-renewable energy resources on increasing the global average temperature. Then you will discuss the challenges that developed countries have the technology. There is supply chain issues, there is cost of production involved with which is not being able to be borne by the developing countries, and the countries need to come together to help and support each other. So you can conclude holistically, yes, the challenges are there, but we need to switch from non-renewable energy resources to renewable energy resources, and if we try to achieve this target of tripling renewable energy resources by 2030, definitely we'll take a positive action towards maintaining the climate change goal, or keeping the average rise in global temperature in check below 2 degrees Celsius. Okay, so you can conclude very holistically. I hope this session was insightful for you. If you have any feedback regarding the session, kindly drop it in the comment box below. If you liked today's discussion and found it to be helpful, kindly like the video and subscribe to our channel for more such updates. Thank you.